With Ben Johnson heading to the Chicago Bears, where does that leave our Las Vegas Raiders? A popular name being thrown around is Pete Carroll, but what other options are on the table? We all know Ben Johnson was the top choice, and we've talked about it before. But now it's time to move forward. There are several potential candidates, some more exciting than others. Let's take a closer look at who the Raiders could realistically hire. First, let's review the coaches the Raiders have already interviewed or requested to interview. The list includes Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, Chiefs defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, former Jets head coach Robert Salah, Broncos defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, former Commanders head coach Ron Rivera. One intriguing name outside of Pete Carroll that's been making waves is Cliff Kingsbury. Although the Raiders haven't interviewed him yet, they may need to wait for in-person meetings, especially since the Washington Commanders are still in the playoffs. Who knows how long that delay might be? Meanwhile, there's breaking news about another sought-after name, Liam Cohen, the Buccaneers' offensive coordinator. Many hoped he'd join the Raiders as their next head coach, but Cohen has decided to stay in Tampa Bay. He signed a new contract and even turned down an interview with the Jaguars. This officially takes him off the list of head coaching candidates. This situation limits the Raiders' options. No Ben Johnson, no Mike Vrabel, and no Liam Cohen. But all hope isn't lost. There are still other candidates to consider. Shout out to the fans for putting together a list of the next best head coach hires the Raiders could make after missing out on Johnson. Let's dive into their top 5 candidates, starting with number 5. Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury, currently the Commanders' offensive coordinator, has helped Washington reach the NFC Championship in just the first year of their rebuild. It's pretty wild to think about, especially since the Raiders almost hired him last year as their offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, things didn't work out, and Kingsbury headed to Washington instead. Fast forward to now, and he's preparing his team for the NFC Championship while the Raiders are left without a head coach or GM. Looking at his work with the Commanders, Kingsbury made a huge impact. He led their offense to score 45 points against the high-powered Lions, something no other team has accomplished this season. While Adam Schefter reported that Kingsbury isn't in a rush to become a head coach again, Kingsbury himself said he'd be open to the opportunity when asked, "Do you want to be a head coach again?" "Yeah, I'm sure at some point, yeah." Many fans are eyeing Kingsbury because of his track record. As a former head coach, he helped the Cardinals stay competitive in the tough NFC West, even if his stint wasn't groundbreaking. If the Raiders are serious about finding an offensive-minded head coach, Kingsbury is a name to watch. Plus, he's much younger than Pete Carroll, which could make him a more appealing choice for the long term. Coming in at number 4 on the list is Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. The Bills' offense has been electric this season, and naturally, the Raiders are intrigued by the idea of bringing that firepower to the West Coast. Brady has been instrumental in shaping Josh Allen and the Bills into one of the top teams in the AFC, just one win away from the Super Bowl. What's impressive is how Brady has developed the Bills' young core. The Raiders also have one of the youngest teams in the NFL, so his ability to maximize potential could be a great fit. However, there's one key difference. The Bills have a franchise quarterback. If Brady comes to the Raiders, finding the right quarterback would be a top priority. That challenge might actually appeal to him, but it's worth noting that Brady has no head coaching experience. So, while he's an exciting prospect, it's a bit of a gamble. At number 3 on the list is Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo is no stranger to the Raiders or the AFC West. He's seen the team up close for years and knows exactly what it would take to make them competitive, not just in the division, but also against his former team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Hiring Spagnuolo doesn't guarantee beating the Chiefs, but it could bring some of the championship mentality he's helped build there. After all, he's been a key part of the Chiefs' success over the last decade. And let's face it, weakening the Chiefs, even a little, wouldn't hurt the Raiders' chances. Spagnuolo has plenty of experience, which makes him a strong candidate. He's been an interim head coach for the New York Giants, the head coach of the Saints, Louis Rams, and a four-time Super Bowl-winning defensive coordinator. Even Tom Brady has praised him, which speaks volumes about his credibility. While Spagnuolo isn't my personal favorite, his championship pedigree and familiarity with the division make him a name to watch in the head coaching search. While Steve Spagnuolo isn't my top choice, I wouldn't completely rule him out. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and look for the positives. If the Raiders hire someone with Spagnuolo's experience, I'll accept it for what it is and hope for the best. Now let's talk about the number one candidate on the list, former Jets head coach Robert Saleh. Many believe Saleh deserves another shot at leading a team, and the Raiders could be the perfect landing spot. After the New York Jets debacle, Saleh was painted as the problem, but insiders say it was actually owner Woody Johnson's mismanagement that held the team back. Despite the challenges in New York, Saleh's coaching ability shouldn't be overlooked. They say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And for the Raiders, Saleh could be the golden ticket to competing in the tough AFC West. The Raiders are in the middle of a complete rebuild, and that clean slate could give Saleh the chance to prove his worth. If he succeeds, it'll show his struggles in New York weren't entirely his fault. But if he doesn't, maybe the critics were right all along. Either way, the Raiders could offer him a fresh start and a real opportunity. I'll admit, Saleh wasn't my top choice, even after his interview with the Raiders. But with Ben Johnson off the board and other candidates focusing on different teams, Saleh is becoming a realistic option. Outside of Pete Carroll and possibly Cliff Kingsbury, Saleh might be one of the best available choices right now. Outside of Pete Carroll, there really isn't a clear favorite for the Raiders. Robert Saleh, if he doesn't land a head coaching position elsewhere, could possibly step in as defensive coordinator. Now, I know things didn't go well for him with the Jets, but that franchise has been a mess for years. The Raiders have had their own struggles, but there's still potential here. Imagine this. The Raiders bring in Pete Carroll to lead the team, and Robert Saleh joins as defensive coordinator. It's the best-case scenario. Carroll could establish the team's culture, build the right roster through free agency and the draft, and get the Raiders back to being playoff contenders. Meanwhile, Saleh could focus on building a tough defense. Saleh is highly respected as a defensive coordinator, and many teams would love to have him in that role. If he's promised a shot at head coach once Carroll moves on, I think he'd be all in. It could be the perfect situation for the Raiders. If that doesn't happen, my top choices would be Pete Carroll, Cliff Kingsbury, and Todd Monken. The Raiders have reportedly requested an interview with Monken, but there's been no word on scheduling it yet. So, what do you think, Raider Nation? Who's your top head coaching pick right now? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you're new here and love the Las Vegas Raiders and daily Raider news, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future updates.